I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
I really like this guy, but I'm not sure if it's exclusive. And I was interested in potentially dating if he wasn't being exclusive. Like, he was kind of my top priority, but if I wasn't his top priority, I wanted to keep my options open. So my therapist was like, bottom line, you have to ask him. You just have to ask him.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for listening. We're launching a radio show based on our podcast, and we're looking for questions from listeners about relationships. So if you have a question or if you'd like some advice about your relationship, give us a call and leave us a message. We're at 415-483-5112. We'll get right back to you, and hopefully we can include you in the show. I'll put that number in our show notes in case you didn't get it. This week's shows are about holding infidelity earnestly but lightly. Now, this will seem a bit counterintuitive. Our interview this week was one of the most fun and really one of the most lighthearted I've ever recorded. But the topic is primarily a series of infidelities that almost cost our guests their marriage more than once. And I've listened to this interview a few times now, as I always do in the editing process. And each time, these two make me giggle and they make me cry without fail. And in reflecting on why that's the case, I realized that it's because of the way these two hold the process of recovery from infidelity. And we all know being human is messy, and that mess can be either terrifying or, frankly, it can be hilarious depending on your perspective. And our guests this week, Kristen and Kourosh, understand that deeply, and it comes across in how they live their lives. These two did everything right, and in a sense they did everything completely wrong in their marriage, and they hold those facts gently. And when the wrong bits in their marriage nearly cost them their relationship, they saved it by doing the one thing that everybody says never to do to save a marriage. And it completely worked. I'll let them tell the story. So with that, let's go to our interview with Kristen and Kourosh.
We both worked at Wired.com, and I was, so I'll tell the story and then Kourosh will have his version, basically. But he was the business editor at Wired.com, and I came in as a reporter.
Oh, okay.
And so I was terrified of him because he was very serious and just kind of mysterious. Yeah. And he wore khakis.
Uh-huh. Pleated
khakis.
You wore pleated? Come on, man.
Come on, it was the late 90s.
Okay.
Cobalt blue shirt.
Which is not an excuse. We called it new media blue back then.
That was the look, wasn't it?
Yeah. And therefore I thought I would never ever date him because of the khakis, right. Basically. And because of the terror that I felt.
Did he have the sexy steel gray hair back then?
He did, actually, but not as much. It was more salt and pepper.
Yeah.
With a lot more pepper back then. But yeah, I thought he was very handsome and smart and attractive and everything, but I was scared of him and he wore khakis. So, but then, do you want to tell the rest of the story? I'll make it too long.
Well, I'll try to tell the short version.
Okay. So, we, the whole office basically went to see a movie together, and, for some reason, he and I both could not make it because of a deadline. I don't know if we were working on the same story or something like that. But so the next day, he was via email as we sat 6 inches apart from each other. Our backs were literally to each other. We sat right next to each other. Sends me an email. I really want to see that movie, but not by myself. I remember the exact content of the email. And I was like, okay, does that mean he's asking me to go with him? Or
And you were sitting with your back to him while he was emailing.
Like he was right there, and I was like, he's emailing me about the movie right now.
It's so great. It's so great for so many reasons. Well, also, there's a paper record of him asking you out on the job now too.
Well,
not that was an issue, but that's pretty funny for a manager.
Stuff like that became so much more of an issue. Actually, it's bringing back some serious memories. Oh my god.
Were you asking her out?
You were.
Not really, because I didn't think it was going to be serious, because I knew I had either just given my notice to Wired or I was about to. So I knew this wouldn't be an issue, because normally I wouldn't, as a manager, ask out, somebody who works with me.
Yeah.
But I had decided I was going to move to New York, and, okay, it might have been a date, maybe not, but I just knew it was going to be, one date, and I'm going to get on a plane. So,
was Kristen cooler than you back then?
Totally.
Yeah, right? Because she's definitely one of the cool kids, right?
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I was a business editor. Right. Come on.
I kind of love that.
Okay.
Anyway, so we decided to go out. She accepted. And the movie that I picked was...
That you picked? I thought it was already picked.
Well, it was picked.
It was picked.
Unfortunately.
Was Eyes Wide Shut, which is the most awkward.
Oh my god. Yeah, you definitely put the nail in that one.
Which was the
worst first date movie ever.
Or best, because it definitely breaks the ice,
And actually, it was one of the things, like the early things that made me realize that he wasn't such a, I don't know,
buddy duddy,
stick in the mud or whatever. Yeah. Because like we were watching this movie and I was kind of like going, oh my God, there's like, this movie's so crazy and there's so much like crazy sex stuff going on and everything. And we both started kind of like giggling, like, oh my God, this is like the funniest first date movie ever. And the fact that we were both giggling and like we were kind of whispering things to each other, like, oh my God, do you believe this is happening in this movie or whatever? I was kind of like, okay, like I think
we have shared values.
Yeah, exactly. We have a shared sense of humor at least, or yeah.
I had my face in my palm, just shaking my head, going, oh, Jesus. But it was fun.
Tom and Nicole.
Yeah.
Last Russ. So the whole office saw that movie too?
Yeah.
That seems a little
That's
awkward.
Even weirder. Yeah. And they should have warned us.
Or no, they were just watching hopefully, and they're like hoping it would be a train wreck.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, this is going to be great, you guys.
Yeah, don't tell them.
All right. So anyway, movie happens.
Yeah. So then we kind of started seeing each other more over that. There was like a 2-week period. Like he gave his notice, and then we had this kind of intense 2-week period where we were like seeing each other. And then
wait, you went from this guy is a fuddy-duddy, well, I guess what the heck, maybe I'll just go to a movie with him, to we're seeing each other. What was the
I think it was
shift?
I think it was a little bit intense because we knew he was leaving. So we were like, if something is going to happen, like it's going to happen fast.
Also, it's lower risk in those cases, isn't it? Because
Totally.
he's leaving, so what the heck?
Yeah, and I think he felt kind of more that way than I did, but but yeah, and then he was also like on the tail end of breaking up with someone else.
No, it was already broken up. Like I wasn't.
But you guys were kind of like
Nah.
So then he moved, and instant messenger was like a new thing, and we were like on it constantly, and it's kind of what the reason why we like became like a real couple, I think, is because of instant messenger.
Yahoo Messenger. Yep.
No, AOL.
No, it was Yahoo.
No, first it was AOL, and then it evolved into Yahoo. Okay. But Yahoo had the best emoji, the best emojis, or the best emoticons.
They did? Oh, I remember the days of IM.
It had this little devil that was like very handy.
Oh,
yeah. That was the shortcut for I'm horny.
You guys did move fast. Cheers to that. I raise my cup to you both.
And to Yahoo.
Thank you, Yahoo. Yeah. Jerry Yang.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Which actually figures prominently in the next step of our relationship.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah. So he was at this startup in New York for like a year, And then
It blew up spectacularly. By the way, they made
Yeah,
a
there's, like,
documentary about it.
that's
About the startup?
Yeah,
about
it's called
how
startup.com. It's a great documentary.
What was the startup
if
called?
you want to learn everything not to do in a startup.
It's called GovWorks. It was a simple idea: pay your parking tickets, pay your whatever you want to do with government, just take care of it online.
Yeah.
Raised $60-some million, and we spent it all in 18 months. Crashed spectacularly. Yeah.
Wow. That was the early days. That was first.
It was the height of it.
Boom,
I
number
mean,
one.
yeah. So that's why the documentary is so good, is because it captured all of that, you
Yeah.
know, the zaniness of that whole period. Anyway, the startup blew up. I went to Guatemala for a couple of months to learn Spanish and kill some time.
And I invited myself.
She invited herself to
I was a little
Guatemala,
pushy.
to Antigua. We had a good time.
This is wonderful.
Yeah. And while I was there, I started interviewing with Yahoo.
Oh.
Yeah. And I got the job, and I moved back to Silicon Valley.
Were you, had you
I
been
was
Uh,
there
here.
the whole time?
Yeah.
I was
she
here the
did
whole
move.
time.
Yeah,
I was still working at Wired the whole time, and yeah.
So the relationship stayed alive.
Were you
over-
visiting each other?
Yeah.
Were you
Yeah.
seeing other people during the trial?
Yeah, I was.
He was.
To be honest, I was.
Was that a spoken thing? Were you okay with it?
No.
It became a spoken thing because I was having a hard time with it at the time because I was like, you know, this seems to be getting serious because I visited him a fair number of times because I would go there for work.
Yeah.
So, and I would stay with him. And it
And as luck would have it, at work, she got my old laptop
oh my God,
at Wired.
this was
Just
incredible.
coincidentally?
Yeah.
Coincidentally.
My laptop like broke or something. So IT brings me a new laptop, like refurbished, that someone else had been using, and it happened to have been his.
Don't tell me it had his logins.
Totally had
What?
his AOL, because it was still in the days when you used like AOL as your like portal or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there you go.
Opened it up, saw all of his email.
Oh.
Yeah, so I found out a lot of things by I mean, the password was all I had to do literally was push return, and I was like in all of his information.
Just
It was
as
like,
an aside, how in tech's name could IT have allowed that to happen?
very
What?
good question, especially at Wired.
Right? There should be a Wired article about that.
Yeah, it
This
was
is
pretty
yeah,
nuts.
exactly.
I mean,
the
it's-
home of crypto and security, and yes, they would not wipe
Wow.
the
All right.
laptops.
So, all right, which is a fascinating story, and we should have you on another podcast about that issue alone. But, well, what then did you? So did you feel betrayed? What was the
Yeah.
feeling? You felt betrayed.
Yeah, I did because previous to that happening, like I had been talking to my therapist about like I really like this guy, but I'm not sure if if it's exclusive, and I was interested in potentially dating if he wasn't being exclusive. Like he was kind of my top priority, but if I wasn't his top priority, I wanted to like keep my options open basically.
Yeah.
So my therapist was like, bottom line, you have to ask him. You just have to ask him.
Right.
You know? So I like worked up the guts to on the phone when he was still in New York to ask him. And he said, he paused in my memory now. I remember he paused for a considerable number of seconds. So I should have that should have been a little bit of a red flag perhaps. But he said, yes, I'm not, he said, no, I'm not seeing other people or something. He basically confirmed that we're exclusive. So I remember like saying no to this guy, like not going on a date with him, and like, you know, making that decision for myself that I was also going to be exclusive. And then after that, I found this, all this incriminating information in his AOL account. And so I immediately went into the conference room and called him in New York, and
Ooh, what was that conversation like?
kind of like me yelling at him, I guess. I
Was
don't
it-
really
was it-
remember. I
I'm
was really
curious
upset.
how you would approach it.
I was really angry, and just I felt really betrayed, and I remember feeling sick. Now that I think about it, like I actually had to go home from work because I felt like sick to my stomach, and so I don't even know how we recovered after that, because we were like already long distance.
Well, I
and-
do want to ask about the recovery, but first I want to ask about Kourosh's perspective of the same thing. So, because that was, I mean, was it just a flat out lie, or did you have it in your head a different way?
Well, I mean, I can't wiggle out of it, so it was a lie.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's, what was going on in New York was, it was the late 90s. Everybody was crazy. Everybody was having a good time. And it wasn't anything serious. And I looked at my relationships and I realized, okay, well, one of them I keep returning to and I have a lot of fun. And I actually spent a lot of time getting very close with her through instant messenger, because it's like a main line into all the deep emotional parts of your brain. So those connections were starting to happen. And she confronted me. She said, is it going to be me? And my recollection was I did pause for a while and I realized, okay, is this going to happen? Because I knew it was going to be the commitment. I was making a commitment then. And I said, yes. And so.
Oh, so for you were making a commitment starting that moment. You weren't speaking about your behavior up to that moment or your activities up to that moment.
No.
Okay. And then did you stay?
And pretty much there wasn't anything really to end. It was, stopped answering phone calls, stopped returning emails to other women who were there. And, frankly, they weren't that attached to me either. And I think I came out to San Francisco, went to her apartment, or we met somewhere. Can't remember. Anyway, it was metaphorically on my hands and my knees.
Wait. Now I'm not so sure. So at first it sounded like you continued to interact with these ladies after saying to Kristen that you were monogamous or that you were committed to her. And then it sounded like the way you just told the story that after you said that to her, you cut off those other ties and you actually were committed to her after you said that. Which one is it?
I thought it was the former, but maybe, it was a while ago. It was 15 years ago.
Boy, your lawyer training is still...
No, I was with you though too. I'm like, I'm not...
Yeah, no, I think she did... a couple of months after I'd moved to New York, she did ask, "Are we committed? Are we exclusive?" And I did lie. I said, "Yes, we are exclusive." And then she confronted me again with after the laptop debacle, and that was the conversation when I realized, okay, she's asking me for real to make a commitment, and this is it. Like this is
okay.
And I agreed to make a commitment. And that's when everything else fell by the wayside. And I actually did fly out to New York, I believe, not the next day, but probably like 2 days after that.
To San Francisco.
To San Francisco.
What did I say?
New York.
Oh.
This was previous to you moving back.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, crazy. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. But anyway, we decided to get over that pretty quickly. And I recommitted. She accepted, and then a few months later the startup blew up. I started looking for I went to Guatemala. She invited herself. We had a lovely time in Guatemala and Antigua and Belize, and I'd say and with Belize, that's when I actually kind of sensed that this could probably be the one. We were in Key Cocker, some other islands right off the coast, and it was just lovely. We were just, hanging out in hammocks and having tropical drinks and snorkeling, and listening to Jimmy Buffett cover keyboardists, and just tropical, summer, tropical warm, and it's like, how could you not fall in love?
Yeah,
and so
it's a great story of falling in love. So now what I want to know is the recovery from that first fallout, right? Whatever that was, that first lie, bad feeling, break of trust. Were you, Kristen, able to let it completely go, or did you hold on to it in some way?
I don't think I completely let it go. I think it kind of compounded on sort of for whatever reason, like innate issues with trust that I already had.
As they always do.
Yeah. So, while I like allowed myself to totally like fall in love and, wanted to be with him, I don't think I ever was like 100% comfortable with the trust thing.
Then why did you allow yourself to fall in love?
It's not a logical decision thing you can make.
I mean,
True point.
Yeah,
It's true
it
point.
wasn't logical. Yeah, I mean, him moving back, when he moved back to San Francisco, I was all like very taken up with the emotions of it. Like, just, it was really exciting that he was back in San Francisco, and all those early days were like big decisions, big exciting things, like, oh, he's moving back, and then, oh, like, we're talking about moving in together, and he helped me find my cat when my cat was lost. That was really like a solidifying moment. I don't know. Yeah. Just, and then like the thought of like, oh my God, is he going to ask me to marry him? It was just like, everything just kind of snowballed. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, when I wasn't with him, I was like, oh, I wonder what he's doing. But then when I was with him, I'd be like very happy.
Did you, Kourosh, know that she might have that tickle in the back of her mind?
Oh yeah, constantly.
You did? Oh, so
Yeah.
wow, you say constantly. Tell me more.
All right, so this is uncomfortable because I have to speak very truthfully. I flirted with other women. There were women either from my past or women at work. Nothing, I mean, at that point, nothing serious. It was just flirting with old flings or whatever. And again, she would find this stuff electronically on computers and laptops and emails and whatever. And she would confront me, and I would say, "Oh, babe, it's not a big deal. It's just checking in on an old friend." Yeah. So I mean, our relationship does have a history of me needing to be watched, and it's true. But we did decide to get married. We had a really good first few years of our marriage. I got a great job. I worked a lot. We actually worked together again because I acquired Wired for my employer, and I went back to working in the same office with her. And then 2008 came along, and the economy blew up, and I lost my job, and I felt a little unmoored. Can I bring up what happened with you too?
Sure.
Well, maybe you should talk about what happened with you. I don't have a right to
You can say
tell
your
the story.
version of it, and
I was working a lot. I didn't pay much. I feel I wasn't paying much attention to Kristen. I feel like the romantic part of our relationship kind of faded away. We were also trying to have children, but we were unsuccessful, and so that took a lot of the, romance and fun out of sex. It became very clinical and based on calendars, and you got to give her a shot, and it was not. It became husbandry. It wasn't
Yeah.
fun.
And how many years into the marriage was this at that point?
3, 4.
No, 5, because if we got married in 2008 and this was we got married in 2003.
I think we started our first IVF in 2006 though.
Oh, yeah.
So that would have been 3 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So it starts to get pretty clinical at about year 3 of the marriage. And up to that, it had been pretty passionate and it's kind of what you would expect out of marriage.
Yeah.
Except for this trust thing that was hanging out in the background, and you kept discovering things, but there hadn't been an infidelity at that point. Okay.
No.
All right.
Being focused on work, not paying much attention, sex not being fun. Kristen took a trip to Paris. I'm not sure exactly what led up to the events, but in Paris, she... why don't you take over?
Okay. Yeah, well, I had quit my job at the time because I had finally left Wired. All these years I had been at Wired, and I got very tired of it and finally left. And I took a break to become a Pilates instructor. And my one of my teachers lived in Paris and had a studio in Paris. She was also an old friend, and so I was like, yeah, why not? I'll go to Paris and get my Pilates training. It was like kind of just sounded really wonderful. Yeah. And Kourosh was supportive of it. And but I ran into someone who I had met briefly in Miami and a few months previous to my trip to Paris. And one thing led to another, and we had a bit of an affair, basically. So I feel like a terrible person talking about it.
Well, look, before we keep talking about the details and how you two recovered, because you did recover, what I want to point out because people can't see what you two look like, what I want to point out to listeners is that you two have recovered from all of this and have a level of comfort and ease with each other now that is really obvious when you're out in the world, and you've worked through something really important. So, and that's why this is fascinating to me personally, because I think a lot of, we all do things that we're not proud of, and infidelity specifically is far more common than people want to admit if you look at the research. And yet it's possible to recover and create something deeper and more solid, which you two have managed to do, I think. So I really am curious how you went through the whole process.
Well, I mean, hearing you say that and just thinking about coming out on the other side of it, I feel like I learned a lot and did grow as a person, and I actually think that our relationship is stronger, but it was really not a fun thing to go through at all. And once again, it was discovered through electronic communications.
Wait, he discovered it this time?
Yeah.
So it wasn't that you came home and told him?
No, I wish, actually.
And Kourosh, you hadn't, you'd been flirting, but you hadn't had any affairs?
No.
Okay. So how did you discover it and how did you feel?
I don't exactly remember how I discovered it. I think I might have logged in remotely one day because I needed to find a file that was in our home computer, and I was in the office. And when I logged in, there's a screen sharing trick that you can basically you log in and you see what's going on the screen. And I happened to log in, I think, as I remember it, at the same time that she was having an IM conversation with the dude. I did confront her. But honestly, I didn't feel that bad. I did love her. I do love you. So it wasn't that I wasn't feeling jealous. It was that I kind of felt like, well, I kind of deserve this because I've been flirting with a lot of women, and she's having fun with this guy, and I can't feel bad because I feel like this is balancing things out a little bit. Plus, at the same time, this was right before the financial crash in 2008, September 2008. And I actually worked in finance. I did mergers and acquisitions. So I knew this was going to be horrendously bad news for my line of work and my job. And we had a very expensive condo in the Mission, and we had a pretty expensive lifestyle. So I started worrying about a lot of other things when I discovered this.
Meaning you thought that it was the end of the marriage, and so you had to figure out how to divide expensive resources?
No, actually not at all. Not at all. I felt that we could actually, because I didn't harbor a lot of anger towards her.
Yeah.
A little bit, but not, like it was the apocalypse and that this was going to be marriage ending. I felt like it was something that we could work through. So I wasn't too worried about that. But I felt that if I lost the job, then that would mean we would lose our home. And that would have been catastrophic. And so I spent a lot more emotional energy worrying about that, how to fix that situation, than infidelity. And I was right. In November of that year, I lost my job, and real estate market crashed, and we tried to sell our home, and we had difficulty selling our home. So that was an enormous amount of strain. And I felt like, okay, let's get through the emergency, the fiscal emergency, then let's deal with what's going on with our marriage.
Yeah, and I remember that being really difficult for me. Actually, not that I deserved to be catered to at that point in time, but I really wanted to work through what had happened, and I didn't want to split up, and I felt like he never really wanted to talk about it, and everything was kind of on hold. And what I realized later is because he was worrying about all this other stuff. But for me, at the top of my mind was like our relationship and what I had done and how are we going to repair everything. But time kept going by, and I felt like I was kind of like in limbo. Like, well, I didn't know if we were going to stay together or not.
So you thought maybe he was avoiding the issue as opposed to it's not being a big issue for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought he was deciding like, probably gonna want a divorce soon. Like but really he was thinking about other things. Like,
well, I'm curious about that because I can see it from two perspectives. On one hand, I can see how an infidelity might really, for me personally, for instance, it's not, I wouldn't want Aubrey to cheat on me, but it wouldn't, depending on how she handled it, wouldn't be a deal breaker. So I can get what you're saying about that, Kourosh. On the other hand, I can see how you might have been conning yourself and distracting yourself with this other stuff so that you didn't have to face the feeling of betrayal and whatever emotions that would bring up.
I'm going to defend myself on that a little bit. I do have a little bit of issue with money and security. When I was born in Iran, and I grew up there until I was 9 or 10 or so, and the revolution happened in 1979. My mom came home one night. She said, "This is the last flight out of Iran. We got to get on this flight. We got 36 hours. Let's go."
Wow.
And we moved to the United States with pretty much nothing. And both my parents had very high prestige jobs, and we were very well off. And all of a sudden we had nothing, literally nothing. So that affected me very deeply. And money and security have always been a very big deal to me. Not that I want to make money to buy Mercedes or whatever. It's that I want to make sure that there's a nest egg in the bank, that if a catastrophe happens, that I'll survive it. We're not going to, be without home and food. And in 2008, that actually happened. So to me, it was, it was probably 2 times, 3 times a bigger deal to me emotionally, in my core feeling of security, than the infidelity.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time in marriage counseling and therapy exploring this. And for me to communicate to Kristen that, look, I love you. The infidelity is a big deal, but this was a much, much bigger deal. It was much more foundational to me.
Yeah.
And I think at some point she did actually understand that. And
well, I did understand that when there was a moment when there was a credit card bill that you didn't realize how high it had gotten, and his reaction to the credit card bill was like 10 times as strong as when he found out about the affair. And like that, that was kind of like evidence that, that really is probably the most important thing to him is like the security and money is a big thing.
Well, when did you guys start therapy? Was it at that time?
I had to talk you into doing therapy at that time, and that was when we had that one therapist who made you really angry. Remember?
Right.
she kept
I
saying,
don't think we did therapy together. And that
well, except for that one woman who
Yeah.
kept saying resonating, and it made you really angry.
She
kept
said
saying,
the
she
word
kept
resonating?
saying the word resonating like over and over, and it was making him
So
so
wait,
angry.
give me the context. What was the resonating context?
Well, he
Did
would
it resonate with you?
Yeah,
Does
like
that
he-
resonate
Yes.
with you?
he would say something like,
I'm not a tuning fork.
he would, he would be like, yeah, I felt betrayed by the infidelity or whatever, and she would say that really resonates with me, and he'd be like, I don't care what it makes me feel like.
Who gives a shit what you think?
There's but then we didn't go together to therapy after that. I went by myself for like years after that. I found someone I really liked and worked through what had happened and just continued going to her on my own because I just really found her to be really helpful.
Well, that's it for part 1 of our interview with Kristen and Kourosh, folks. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next week. I have to say the story gets much, much juicier in our next segment, and we'll get to hear how these two saved their marriage using the technique that everybody says you definitely should never use. If you'd like to hear more about Kristen or if you'd like to learn about her, you can find her extremely popular fashion and lifestyle blog at stylenik.com. That's STYLENIK.com. If you liked what you heard on the show today, please subscribe to us on iTunes. It makes a big difference. Please also consider donating to our Patreon campaign. We're on a mission to crush shame, as you may know, and every penny really helps. You can find our campaign at patreon.com/together. That's patreon.com/together. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out via one of our platforms. You can find our website at www.together.guide. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/togethershow. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out via one of our platforms. You can find our website at www.together.guide. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/togethershow. Twitter and Instagram are both at @together_show, or you can email me at host@together.guide. Our producer is Charlene Goto. Our web designer is Courtney Munna. Our art director and my one and only is Aubrey Pick. She's the whole reason, folks. Thanks once again to my guests, Kristen and Kourosh. Guys, next time, it's all of us in Greece. Promise. That's all for today, folks. See you next time.